Good morning, everybody. DJ Styles here at Custom Corpses. And okay, I've got my plastic bucket on my gram scale. You can see it zeroed out at 0. This is the urethane rubber that I'm about to use. All right, this is a poly 7420 liquid rubber. It's one of these to half of this. So if I have 2 of these, which I do, I have 2 of these, it's 1 full bottle of this. All right, so it's 2 part to 1 part, 2 part B to 1 part A. That's your ratio mixture. So I'm not ready to do this yet. I just want to make sure my scale was working. I want to make sure the batteries were there and okay. But the first thing I got to do is release the sculptures with a liquid oily release. Yesterday, I put the paste wax all inside the molds. And today I've got to put the release on it. And then I'm going to mix up a thin coat of a thin coat of urethane rubber, all right, and make sure I have all the detail captured. Then I got to mix up another portion of this. I'm probably going to mix up half of this right here, half of this bottle, and whatever that weight is, I'll half that weight, whatever, like say, whatever the halfway weight is on this, I'll half that weight of this stuff. So it's probably like 1/4 of that. And then what I'm going to do is paint the whole inside and make sure I capture all the detail with the urethane rubber. And then I take the remainder of the rubber and I just take the other bottle that I have in there and plus what's left in here, put it in a big bucket and pour the rest of the 74 in there with it. And that'll be enough to harden the whole batch. And then what I want to do is I'm going to add what they call a poly fiber to it, so it's thick. And then that will thicken the entire rubber urethane mass. This way, if there's any kind of imperfections that, you know, that I can kind of sand out or whatever I need to do, not a problem, because I will have plenty of rubber inside there. It'll be very thick cast, so, and it'll last for years. So let's get this process started. So I'm going to move my scale and I'm going to bring my what do you call it? Move my scale. Move this out of the way, and I have to bring the first half over. All right, now here's the release that I want to use. It's a release agent. It's a sealer and a release agent, and I'm going to butter this thing with this release. I'm going to use the same brush I used yesterday for the paste wax, so why waste the brush, right? So let's get it started here. And then I got to do the other half. And then I start mixing the rubber and get it done. Okay, so make sure I don't have anything in here that don't belong in here. Blow it out. Okay, looks good, looks great. And as a matter of fact, the old jar of this paste, I'm going to use that for this liquid, so I can just dunk my brush in there. Now this stuff's very oily. Don't need a lot. Oops, that won't fit on there, will it? Now see what I'm doing here is I'll just take this brush, mix it in here. I don't want it too runny. I just make sure it releases well, especially Yeah, especially in the crevices of my sculpted in logo, and don't want anything sticking. The other paste wax seals the surface, and then this is your release agent. This is what releases the rubber from your now I'm putting a little bit of rubber over the edge here. All right, so this way I don't have to worry about, you know, the rubber sticking here, and I don't want to miss in this area because I'm going to need it for the seam. Very important to make sure you get the seam. Now you can see that little repair that I made right here where the hole was. That's all dry now and nice and smooth. You know what? I'm going to release this whole thing just so I don't have to worry about it. Release the whole edge. It can't hurt, because you don't want that rubber sticking to your casting. Once this is done, I throw this away. I'll break this up into a million pieces and throw it away. Now you can see the release agent. See how it's starting to darken up in spots? That's basically absorbing into the sculpture where the paste wax didn't absorb. So that's a good thing. So it's an extra step. You don't have to worry about it sticking. It won't stick. That's a good thing. You don't want to miss nothing. Still want to do the bottom portion of this too. Yeah, once you do this to a mold, that's it. This mold's no good. This will not do latex ever again. And you're better off smashing it up, because I don't want anybody getting a hold of a mold like this, because they can actually make a urethane rubber mold if they know what they're doing. But I don't let anybody get a hold of my work. Nope, not gonna happen. So I make sure that I get rid of my molds properly. Take my 30-pound sledgehammer to them and they're done. One shot. One shot and it's gone. So now I gotta do the bottom portion here. Don't want any rubber sticking to this thing. Very important. Now this stuff doesn't dry. This is like an oil. This stuff really doesn't dry. It just stays slick. I mean, I can let it dry for a little bit, you know that, but I really don't think this is going to dry. It's just a sticky mess. Make sure you get into all the crevices, because really it's important. You don't want none of that rubber sticking to this thing. Okay, that one's done. Moving on to the next one. I still got plenty of this release agent left too. All right, so I'm going to slide this over here and bring this bad boy over here. I might as well do it that way so you can see what I'm doing. Let's do it. Let's do all the details first. Let's make sure I got plenty of release in all my details. Pretty crazy how fast this process really is. The hardest part to making mask is your sculpture, and I find that the most enjoyable, to tell you the truth, because it's where the art really takes place, is in your sculpting, you know. So what is that? Okay, it's just absorbing into there and staining it a little bit. That's okay. Because once this is done, it's done. There won't be no saving this mold. I'm being generous with making sure that there's plenty of release on this. You know, the funny thing is, I made a mistake last time I did this rubber part, because I've never done the urethane before, and it was a long time, and I thought, you know, I felt like I was doing something wrong, and I couldn't figure out what's wrong with this. It wasn't curing at all. I'm like, I put the thickener in, I did all this work, and it wasn't curing. I was like, what the hell is wrong? Wouldn't you know, I forgot to put the 74 in with the rubber. And when you don't do that, guess what? It won't cure at all. So I sat there for several hours trying to brush the stuff up onto the walls, kept collapsing. And I'm like, what in the world? But the ironic thing was, what was so cool is no sooner I put that other part into it, man, it made it nice and sticky, and it really stuck to everything really good. So it was a home run, you know. Lesson learned. Cross your T's and dot your I's. Definitely. Yeah, I'm being generous on here because this is the side of the mask that actually has all the important details, and you better not screw up. And that's a fact, Jack. Now I'll use a new brush when I'm brushing into the mold, the rubber. And I'm probably going to use something just like this. So yes, sir. Okay, now I got to get this side done. Make sure this is released really good. I think I might let this dry for like an hour before I go and start the mold process, just to be on the safe side. Make sure it's absorbed well into the sculpture. This way there's no possibility of, I want to make sure I get this top of this head real good, because this is where the seam is, and you want to make sure that seam is well covered. Make sure you do your seam areas really well. Pivot this a little bit. Make sure there's nothing dry on the inside. Looks nice and oily. Now, all these products that I use, I get at Brick in the Yard is the name of it. They're out of Texas. So do yourself a favor and give them a call and tell Mitch that Custom Corpses sent you. You know, when you go to order your product, they're really good at what they do, and they really are informable. You're going to be well informed. Let's just put it that way when it comes to their products. They're never too busy to talk to you in depth about, like, if you come up, like me, I was coming up with an idea to do this kind of thing with the urethane rubber, and he did tell me a couple people have done it, but not many people use this rubber for this purpose. You know, Mitch said, "Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. You know, you can make a master copy out of urethane rubber, and you never have to worry about it shrinking." You know, that was my first question. Actually, my question wasn't, I didn't know anything about the urethane. All I did was say, look, I want to salvage my original size sculpture. What kind of rubber do you guys recommend to put inside of a mold that doesn't shrink? All right, and that's the key, because what happens is this here, if I put a latex mask in there, it shrinks up to 2 inches. And I want the original size of the sculpture. This way I can have multiple size masks. And it's important, because if you have your original size, you know, if somebody has a really big head, they can buy the ultimate size. Now, even this casting here, once it's done, I make a master, I make another one of these molds just like this. It still will shrink 2 inches, so it'll still be smaller than the original sculpture. Your very first mask from your sculpture will still be 2 inches smaller than the actual mold, no matter what, because you can't, unless you're going to make a urethane mask that you're going to wear. But that's not necessary. There are other products. My buddy Nick Malpagano developed some sort of product that doesn't shrink, so he captures the original size of his mold. Ask Nick about that at handyboy.com, or you can catch him on Facebook. Sing Along with Nick. Look him up on Facebook. Sing Along with Nick, and that man's been in this business a long time. I'm a rookie. I'm new at this, so I'm constantly asking that man questions, and he has been so good to me, you know. And in honor of him, as soon as I get this master made, which I have the latex is already pulled, I'm going to make, because he needs a smaller version. I have the latex mask curing right now, so it's probably going to have to cure for another 4 or 5 days, and then it'll be shrunk to the size I need it to be fully, and then I'll make another casting of stone from that latex mask, and then I'm going to send him that pull. That very first pull is going to my friend Nick. The very first pull is the very first pull that doesn't have problems. Like if there's like imperfections, air bubbles or something, I will not send that. I will throw that away. You know, I can repair that for myself. I can make a display on it, but I won't sell a mask that's not really on the money. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, guys. I covered up my remaining sealer. And I'm going to let this soak. I'm going to let this soak in for a bit. Let it dry up, and then I'm going to come back, mix up the urethane rubber with no polyfiber, and make sure it's in the crevices. The working time of that urethane rubber is about a half hour, so I'm going to do both sides while it's apart. And as it thickens, I'm going to make sure that I have it up against and over top of this edge just a little bit. All right, a thin coat over top of the edge to make sure that I have a seam. I'll do the same on the other side. Then I'll stick these two together, mix up the rest of the batch of urethane, and from there I will put all of it inside with the polyfiber and really thicken this up. Now when I put the polyfiber in, I put this together, I put part B into the bucket, all right? Then I put the polyfiber in. I put part B into the bucket, then I put the polyfiber and mix the polyfiber in there and get it to the thickness that I want, which is like peanut butter, all right? And then I'll add the hardener and then mix that together. And this way I have the most working time possible. You don't want to add the hardener, or I'll call it, you don't want to add part A to it before you put the polyfiber in. You want to make sure that you put the polyfiber in part B and get it to your thickness to what you want, and then add your remaining. But you have to figure out the math. Well, actually, with this situation, it doesn't matter, because once I do the half a bottle, the remainder of the hardener and the other bottle go all together, and then it pretty much works itself out. So it's pretty simple. You'll see. I'll do it, and then you'll get a generalization of what I'm doing and why I did it that way. So, okay, guys, I'll be back in an hour to start the urethane rubber.